I gave her 4 years of my life. She gave me 6 words. You're pathetic. Keep your cheap ring. Then she tossed it, the one I worked 6 months to afford, like it was a gum wrapper, not a promise. Her parents clapped from the shadows, already prepping her hand for Brody's. That's a better man, the one they chose. I just stood there, in that busted-up third-floor walk-up we called home, staring at the empty spot where her cat used to sleep. That's when I knew I wasn't just losing a fiancé. I was being erased. 2 years later, I built something she never believed in, a business, a home, a life, and a woman who didn't flinch when things got hard. Then one day, Lily saw it all, and she broke. She saw the man she left behind had become someone she couldn't reach anymore. I don't tell this for revenge. I tell it because someone out there is being told they're a joke, but sometimes the punchline grows teeth. Stick around, this one ends with justice. The first crack didn't sound like much. It never does, not when love is still trying to hold the walls together. It was about 6 months before everything fell apart. Lily's old college roommate was getting married out in Charleston, and I spent 2 months saving for a decent tux and a gift that didn't scream discount aisle. We were engaged then. I thought it would be fun, a glimpse of the life we'd be building together. The reception was straight out of a catalog. Ice sculptures, string quartet, and champagne I couldn't pronounce. Everyone looked like they'd been styled by professionals. I tried to play it cool, smiling when Lily laughed with her old friends about their high-rise apartments and company perks. I stood there with one drink, explaining my startup to a table of silver-haled investors who blinked, then chuckled like I'd told a kid's joke. "Still playing with computers, huh?" one said. "Time to grow up, son. You're getting married." But the part that broke something deep? Lily didn't say a word in my defense, just looked down at her plate and murmured something about the bride's dress. Later, in the car, I asked if it bothered her. She told me I was being sensitive, said I should have played along better. That night, I learned something quietly devastating. Sometimes, the person you love most starts pulling away not in storms, but in silence. And you only notice when it's already too late. The second crack came on a Tuesday, quiet, polite, dressed in pearls. Lily's mother, Susan, invited me to coffee. Just the two of us, no Lily, no buffer. She picked some upscale cafe tucked into a block of glass storefronts and hybrid cars, the kind of place where the smallest cup of coffee has a name I can't pronounce and costs more than a decent breakfast. I got there early, nervous, without knowing why. She arrived 15 minutes late, offered no apology, just a nod, and sat down like the table was hers all along. "I've been thinking about your situation," she said, like my life was a spreadsheet that needed rearranging. She placed a manila folder between us, slid it across the table like a poker hand. Inside were job listings. Real ones, she said. Entry-level banking. Insurance firms. HR admin at some mid-size company with polished glass lobbies and the kind of water coolers no one ever touches. "These are stable," she explained, like I'd been floating on a raft waiting to be rescued. "With benefits. 401ks, promotions, security. You could work your way up, like Brody did." "Ah, Brody?" I stared at the papers, at the neat print and bullet points. Each one felt like a death certificate for the part of me that believed in the little company Jake and I were building from scratch. My startup wasn't sexy, it wasn't profitable, but it was mine, and it mattered to me. "You want me to give all this up?" I asked, my voice low, "to become a claims adjuster?" She didn't flinch, just sipped her overpriced latte and looked at me like I was a child refusing broccoli. "I want you to be realistic, for Lily's sake. She deserves a future, security, not a pipe dream." She didn't raise her voice, not once, but every word was sharp and heavy like a polished stone tossed through a stained glass window. I walked out of that cafe feeling like I'd just been politely erased. When I told Lily about it later, expecting anger or even surprise, she barely blinked, just said, "She means well," and then added, "Maybe you should look at 1 or 2 of the jobs just in case." Just in case. That was the moment I knew something had shifted. Something quiet, but deep. Like roots turning in the soil. And then came dinner. Lily called it a casual family dinner. Told me to dress nice, maybe wear a blazer. I should have known then. Should have known when we pulled up to the house, a mansion, though they just called it the place. The driveway was lined with BMWs and Mercedes, 2 Audis for variety. My beat-up Honda Civic, dented fender and all, looked like it had taken a wrong turn off the interstate and landed at the country club. Inside was worse. This wasn't a family dinner. It was a curated event. Polished cutlery, name cards at the table, and floral centerpieces like a fundraiser gala. Lily's dad, Robert, greeted me with that firm, politician-style handshake people use when they're already calculating your worth. I could feel it in his grip, that quiet contempt disguised as charm. Turns out this wasn't just family, it was a showcase. Business associates, their sons, connections of connections, the kind of crowd that summered in places and had ski homes just outside Aspen. I recognized the type. I'd grown up watching them from behind kitchen counters and busboy trays. They spoke in code, in phrases like emerging markets and property portfolios. They laughed about renovations that cost more than my yearly income. I sat there nursing a single glass of wine, answering questions that weren't questions. "So, Ethan," Robert said over steak, "still tinkering with that little tech project?" "It's a startup," I said, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. "We're early stage, but we're making progress." I didn't tell them we were broke, that Jake and I had been sleeping at the office some nights, chasing bugs in our code like ghosts in the attic, that we were 2 weeks away from having to shut it all down if we didn't land the next investor. One of the other men, teeth too white, tan too deep for February, chuckled. "Deck's a risky game," he said, swirling his glass. "Have you ever thought of having a backup plan?" The laughter was soft, but it stuck. "And Lily?" She didn't say a word. "No, he's doing something amazing. No, I believe in him." Just silence. That hurt more than the rest. Then came Brody, brought out like a show pony. Susan introduced him with the kind of pride that dripped like syrup. "Brody just made junior partner," she beamed. "Yale Law, brilliant mind." Brody looked like the cover of a men's fashion catalog. Pressed suit, cufflinks, skin that had never known stress or ramen noodles. He spoke with ease about his condo, his bonus, and his 5-year plan to make full partner. And Lily, my Lily, she leaned in, asked questions, laughed at his stories, laughed at things I'd heard her roll her eyes at years ago. Each laugh was a nail. Each question, a step away from me. I sat there, in a room full of people I couldn't relate to, listening to my fiancé slowly forget who we were. By dessert, I'd said maybe 10 words all night. Every time I opened my mouth, someone redirected the conversation. Every effort I made was quietly shut down, like I was some small-town cousin who got invited out of pity. And Lily didn't notice. Or maybe she did, and chose not to care. That night, I drove home alone. Lily stayed behind to help clean up. She texted later, "Sorry about dinner, everyone was just excited. Brody can be a bit much, huh?" I stared at the message for a long time, then turned off my phone. That was the night I knew the girl I loved wasn't standing beside me anymore. She was standing across from me, on the side, where everything looked better on paper. She wanted stability, her parents wanted status, and somewhere along the way I had become the thing they all politely agreed was holding her back. And maybe she believed it too. When we got back to my apartment that night, something was different. I could feel it before she said a word. Lily didn't laugh at the broken elevator like she used to. She muttered about how it was always something and sighed in that tight, performative way that told you she wanted you to ask what was wrong. She didn't pet Python when he jumped on the bed, just brushed him off with a wrinkle of her nose, said the place smelled weird. She never used to notice things like that. She looked around the apartment like she'd never been there before, like she was seeing it for what it was. Cramped, old, a little too lived in. That's when I knew we were done. But I didn't expect her to make it official so fast. A week later, Lily came by after work, still in her business casual, that same navy blouse with the gold buttons her mother picked out. She sat across from me at our tiny IKEA dining table, the one we'd eaten off for 4 years. Late-night Thai takeout, pizza with friends, coffee with plans. Now, it was just wood and space between us. "We need to talk," she said, voice soft but deliberate, like she'd practiced it in the mirror that morning. She didn't meet my eyes when she started. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. About us. About my future. About what I need." I let her talk. "I love you. But I need stability. I can't keep waiting for you to figure it out. My family made me realize that I need someone who's already there. Someone who can provide the life I deserve." "Someone like Brody," I said, flat. She didn't even blink. "Yes, someone like Brody." And just like that, the mask came off. She looked around my place like it was the scene of some failed dream and said, "I tried to make this work. I did. But I can't pretend anymore. This isn't the life I want. A rundown building, a boyfriend who can't take me anywhere nice, who's still living like a college kid." That stung, but not as much as what came next. "You're 29, she said, "and you're still playing with computers in your bedroom. Brody owns a condo. Brody takes me places where people recognize him. Brody doesn't have to save for 6 months just to buy a decent ring." That last part, the ring, hit me like a slap. I'd worked double shifts, skipped weekends, and eaten ramen for months to buy that ring. It wasn't huge, but it was real. Wow, I said, voice hollow. 4 years, and you're telling me this now? Why even stay? I gave you 4 years to get it together, but you're still the same broke dreamer I met in college, except now you're older and it's just pathetic. We argued, of course. That kind of pain demands noise. Voices got sharp, tempers short, and then she did it. She yanked the ring off and threw it at me. It bounced off my chest and clattered to the floor like a verdict. Here, take your cheap ring back. Brody's already talking about a real one from Tiffany's, not some bargain bin store. I stared at that little circle of gold on the floor, the one she'd once cried happy tears over. You know what's pathetic? I said, standing slowly. Pretending to love someone for 4 years while keeping score. Her cheeks flushed. At least I'm not wasting my life chasing some fantasy that'll never happen. You're right, I said. I picked up the ring. You're not wasting your life. You're just wasting mine. She grabbed her purse like it had a lifeline in it. Brody's picking me up at 8. Opened the door for her. Good. Hope he brings tissues. 2 days later, she was Instagram official with him. Matching outfits, champagne flutes, tagged at some luxury resort in the Hamptons. Caption, found my forever. I was still sleeping on the side of the bed we used to share. Still finding her hair ties in the couch cushions. Still had her shampoo in the shower. The ring sat on my dresser. Quiet. Accusing. I wish I could say that was the moment I turned things around, that I got up, hit the gym, closed funding for my startup, and proved everyone wrong, but that's not how life works. He spiraled. The startup crashed a month later. Our big demo? The app froze 3 times in 5 minutes. Investors left with polite smiles. Jake, my co-founder, took a job at Microsoft. I couldn't blame him. He had student loans and a girlfriend who believed in him. Had an empty apartment, a lease I couldn't afford, and a savings account that looked like a countdown timer. I gave up the apartment, but Kai, my college roommate, saved me. He lived in a 1-bedroom with a futon and mismatched chairs, but he didn't hesitate, cleared out half his closet, let Python stay without asking questions. When I showed up with garbage bags full of my life, he just said, "Dude, that ring cost more than my car, and my car's a piece of crap." Then he opened a beer and said, "Let's rebuild." Meanwhile, Lily was living her best life, at least that's what the internet said. Rooftop brunches, weekend yachts, candlelight dinners at places where the menu doesn't show prices. Every post felt like a message. See? This is what you couldn't give me. But I stopped looking after a while. Because every time I did, I lost another piece of myself. And I was tired of losing. The lowest point of my life didn't arrive with some grand explosion. It came quietly. On a hot Tuesday afternoon, standing in line at a downtown cafe with someone else's dinner sweating in my hands. I was doing deliveries for Uber Eats, my 5th gig that month. My car's AC had been broken for weeks. Couldn't afford the repair, so I'd been driving around in 90-degree heat with the windows down, soaked in my failure and the scent of fast food. My phone was nearly dead, and I still had 4 deliveries left if I wanted to break even that day. That's when I saw them, Lily and Brody. They were sitting outside like they belonged to a different world. Or maybe I'd just finally accepted that I didn't belong in theirs. Brody had on these ridiculous sunglasses and loafers with no socks. Lily wore a sundress I'd never seen before, her hair swept up in one of those expensive styles that look effortless but cost more than a week's rent. They looked curated. Brody saw me first. He leaned back in his chair like he was settling in for a show. "Well, well," he said, just loud enough to make sure nearby tables could hear. "Still delivering food, I see." I didn't say anything, just stood there, shirt wrinkled, eyes tired. Lily turned, saw me. For a flicker of a second, I thought I saw something in her eyes. Guilt, maybe. But it vanished so fast I might have imagined it. She smiled, a small, perfect, condescending smile. I grabbed the order and turned to leave. "Dodged a bullet there, didn't we?" Brody called out, and Lily laughed. Not a cruel laugh, just casual, like none of it had ever meant anything. That moment broke something clean in me. I got into my car, slammed the door shut, and sat there. No music, no movement, just the smell of fries and sweat and disappointment. I delivered the food, finished my shift, drove home, but something inside me had shifted. A kind of stillness took hold. Not peace, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. That night, I told Kai what happened. His response? "Brody sounds like the kind of dude who thinks mayo is spicy." He looked at me. "Time to show those trust fund babies how the real world works." So I did. I deleted every social media app. No more checking Lily's posts, no more doom scrolling or comparing my life to filtered nonsense. I cut everything that didn't feed me. Distractions, self-pity, the bitterness that had been chewing on my ribs since the breakup. Sleep became optional. 4 hours if I was lucky. Days were for Uber, evenings for restocking shelves at the grocery store, and nights, the late, silent ones, were for rebuilding. I took the broken pieces of my first startup, the humiliation of that demo, and the silence from old investors, and I started again. But this time, I got smart. No more flashy decks or chasing angel rounds on half-baked promises. I bootstrapped. Kept my circle small. Just me, Kai, and a couple of folks who'd stuck around when things got ugly. Kai was everything. He'd make sure I ate, brought me coffee during 3 a.m. coding sessions, let me turn his living room into a graveyard of cables and whiteboards. And when I started talking about a new idea, something different, something real, he just nodded and said, "Let's build." The idea was simple. AI-powered contract analysis for small law firms. Boring, unsexy work, but necessary. I'd learned that the hard way, trying to navigate legal paperwork with no money and no help. Our software flagged risks, suggested revisions, and highlighted clauses that mattered. Saved firms hours of labor. Kai said, "So you're building a lawyer that doesn't lie? Bruh, you're a saint." We didn't post about it, didn't brag, just worked, quietly, obsessively. Then, something shifted. A client dropped a testimonial in a legal forum. It got noticed. A tech blog picked it up. More clients followed. Suddenly, I wasn't chasing business, it was chasing me. 2 years passed. No word from Lily. No more cafe run-ins. And for the first time, I didn't care. Jake, my old co-founder, called one day. Said he missed the startup life. Said Microsoft was too corporate. Asked if we had room. We didn't. Not out of spite, just we'd moved on. The team I had now, they were the ones who stayed up late on empty stomachs and bad coffee, the ones who saw the dream before it had an office or a salary. They earned their place. And then it happened. We landed a contract with one of the biggest law firms in the country. That opened doors overseas, offices in London, Singapore. I found myself on flights again, this time not for meetings I had to beg for, but to sign deals people waited months to schedule. The company that started in Kai's one bedroom was now disrupting an industry. And me? I stopped sweating in 90-degree heat for $6.00 tips. I bought my mom a car, got a dog, even let myself laugh again. But the ring, the one Lily threw at me, still sat in a drawer, not out of bitterness, just as a reminder of how low it got, and how far I have come. Here's the beautiful irony. Our company's biggest disruption hit exactly where Brody built his career. Corporate financial law. The same world that once mocked my little computer project now had to reckon with us. Our AI didn't just speed up legal review, it made junior associates obsolete. We weren't knocking on doors anymore, we were changing the locks. The first time I saw Lily again, it was at an industry conference. I wasn't attending, I was speaking. A year earlier, I wouldn't have even been able to afford the entry fee. Now, I was on the main stage, and from that stage, I saw her, standing near the back, a glass in hand, frozen. She looked good, polished, but smaller somehow. The fire she used to wear like perfume was gone. When our eyes met, she didn't smile, she didn't wave, she just looked. And I knew right then, she realized what she gave up. A week later, she texted, "Hey, been a while, can we catch up?" I ignored it. Then she showed up at my office. She stood in the doorway, eyes scanning the space like she was walking through a dream she once had and abandoned. She gave me a soft hey, like we were two kids in a coffee shop again. "I was wrong," she said. "About everything. About you. About us." I let her talk, let her say the things I used to dream of hearing, and when she said, "Maybe we could start over," I shook my head. "We ended," I said, "the day you traded love for leverage." She flinched. But I wasn't cruel. Just honest. You didn't want me when I had nothing. You don't get to want me now that I have everything. That's when Chloe walked in, my partner, in business and life. Strong, grounded, everything Lily pretended to be. I watched Lily see her, watch her move like she belonged, and I saw the realization in her eyes again, this time more bitter than the first. Lily left, but not quietly. She tried again a few weeks later, showed up crying, shouting, begging, and when security had to escort her out, she screamed the same thing over and over. "I loved you. I gave you the best years of my life. But the truth is, She only loved who she wanted me to become, not who I was. Brody, his firm collapsed under the weight of its arrogance. Ours bought out one of his competitors, and within 6 months, his name disappeared from company websites like it had never mattered. Maybe it didn't. In the end, I didn't need revenge. I just needed peace. And I found it. Quietly. Without noise. Without applause. Just the simple, steady rhythm of a life built on something real. Something earned. Something that couldn't be taken away by people who never saw its worth to begin with. If you've made it this far, thank you for walking through this story with me. Maybe you've been there, betrayed, belittled, told your dreams were foolish. Or maybe you know someone standing at that same crossroads right now. This story wasn't about revenge. It was about rising, slow and steady, until the pain didn't define me anymore. So if it meant something to you, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. It helps us keep telling stories that matter. Drop a comment below, whether it's your own story or just what this made you feel. I read every single one. And most of all, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's still in the middle of their storm, who needs to know that calm does come, that peace is possible. The person who left doesn't get to write the ending. Thanks for watching, and hey, take care of yourself. You matter more than you think.